New Hampshire actually sued Massachusetts back in October of 2020. But with all that's been going on, it didn't float to the top of my list. Now, at this point, I thought it'd be a good time to take a break from our regular government insanity and look at something a little closer to home. This is not just for those in New Hampshire, though, because this case has implications for every small business owner in America. See, when New Hampshire originally sued Massachusetts, it seemed it was only about collecting income tax from non-residents. After I looked at the complaint, though, I think we should make the exact same argument about interstate sales taxes as well. So we'll discuss that next on the Constitution Study.
There's one thing you have to know wherever you make your stand. Came from a long through line of everyday Americans.
Hello there, everyday Americans. Paul Engel here with the Constitution Study, where we read and study the Constitution. We teach the rising generation to be free. I am glad you could join me. I'm glad you're part of these. I'm hoping this little diversion from our routine government insanity will sit well with you. If you would like to find out more about what we're doing, please head over to the website, constitutionstudy.com. Everything there is free to you to use, free for you to share. It is there for your benefit. If you like it and you want to support the work that I'm doing, then please consider donating to the cause. All the money that's donated through the website goes to keeping the website and those articles coming. So please consider that. And now, let's talk a little bit about this case between New Hampshire and Massachusetts. As with most cases, there's a lot of rhetoric and legal flourishes in this complaint. For our purposes, though, I will focus on the crux of the issue. See, many people who work in Boston and the surrounding areas live in New Hampshire. Since these people physically worked in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the Commonwealth taxed the income they made within the state. When the Commonwealth locked down, they prevented these New Hampshire residents from traveling to their jobs in Massachusetts. Not surprisingly, those who could work from home did. I do not know what the economic impact was of these New Hampshire residents no longer working in Massachusetts, but apparently it was significant enough for Massachusetts to attempt to recoup some of their losses. Reading from their complaint, quote, on April 21, 2020, Massachusetts adopted a temporary emergency regulation declaring, for the first time, that non-resident income received for services performed outside Massachusetts would be subject to the state's income tax. This emergency regulation applied retroactively to March 10, 2020. Massachusetts extended this regulation on a temporary basis in July and most recently adopted it as a final rule effective October 16, 2020, known as the tax rule. Now, this bothered those in Concord, New Hampshire. Why? Because one of the reasons so many people who work in Massachusetts live in New Hampshire is because of their tax policy. As they noted in their complaint, quote, for decades, New Hampshire has made the deliberate policy choice to reject a broad-based personal earned income tax or a general sales tax. Not only does New Hampshire sit as an island among the New England states, but this choice differentiates New Hampshire from nearly every other state in the Union. New Hampshire saw this not only as an illegal taxation of their citizens, but a violation of their sovereignty. Quote, through its unprecedented action, Massachusetts has unilaterally imposed an income tax within New Hampshire that New Hampshire, in its sovereign discretion, has deliberately chosen not to impose. The tax rule is a direct attack on this New Hampshire advantage. It disrespects New Hampshire's sovereignty. It undermines an incentive for business to locate capital and jobs in New Hampshire, is a motivation for families to relocate to New Hampshire's communities, and the state's ability to pay for public services by reducing economic growth. It weakens efforts to recruit individuals to work for the state government. It endangers public health in New Hampshire by penalizing workers for following public health guidelines and working from home rather than from their offices. And it undermines New Hampshire's sovereign duty to protect the economic and commercial interests of its citizens. Now, in the complaint, New Hampshire quoted several federal cases to prove their point. From North Carolina Department of Revenue versus the Kimberly Race Kastner Family Trust. Quote, the power to tax may be essential to the very existence of government, but the legitimacy of that power requires drawing a line between taxation and mere unjustified confiscation. Yes, states have an almost unlimited power to tax. They can tax your income, your property, and your sales. The question is, can they tax residents of other states? Quote, this court has long recognized that states have limited power to tax non-residents. Both the Commerce Clause and the Due Process Clause prohibit the states from taxing earned value outside of their borders, from the Allied Signal v. Director of Division of Taxation case. In the Allied Signal case New Hampshire referenced, the court opined that one state taxing the value earned in another state was a violation of both the Commerce and Due Process Clauses. From Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3, Congress has the power, quote, to regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the several states and with the Indian tribes. The states have delegated the power to regulate commerce between them to Congress. Therefore, no state has the authority to interfere in the commerce that remains inside another state or between two or more states. What about the Due Process Clause, or more accurately, clauses? Well, the Fifth Amendment reads, quote, no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. And, according to the 14th Amendment, nor shall any state deprive a person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Since Massachusetts is claiming the authority to deprive residents of New Hampshire of their property, namely their income, without showing cause or violation in a court of law, it seems it's violating this right as well. It appears New Hampshire has a pretty good case against Massachusetts. There is no authority for one state to tax the value generated outside of their state. Since the only entity that is authorized by the Constitution to collect taxes on income from whatever source derived is Congress, thank you, 16th Amendment, the case seems pretty cut and dried. But what does that have to do with interstate sales tax? Well, enter the Supreme Court case South Dakota v. Wayfair. In the Wayfair case, the Supreme Court found that the rule it had established was unsound. See, the court had found that there had to be a physical presence within the state before the state could exercise their power. And until the South Dakota v. Wayfair case, that also meant that a state could not impose the requirement of collecting sales taxes on an entity unless it had a physical presence within the state, referred to in tax law as a nexus. You see, then came the explosion of online shopping. The Supreme Court erroneously found that not collecting sales tax from out-of-state vendors would, quote, discriminate against interstate commerce and, quote, impose undue burdens on interstate commerce. Personally, I find this laughable, since the reason the state of South Dakota filed the case against Wayfair was because of the explosion of interstate commerce and its impact on their sales tax revenue. So what does that have to do with New Hampshire v. Massachusetts? In the New Hampshire v. Massachusetts case, the physical presence rule would mean a person would need to have a physical presence in Massachusetts before the Commonwealth could exercise its power to tax them. Now, as I argued when I reviewed the South Dakota v. Wayfair case, and repeat here, it is a violation of state sovereignty for one state to exercise sovereign power over an entity outside of their jurisdiction. Which brings us to an interesting question. Will the court recognize the sovereign border of the state of New Hampshire? Or will it overrule the Constitution and allow Massachusetts to exercise its sovereign power over citizens of another state? History has shown that there's really no way to tell. The mercurial nature of the court leaves me some hope, but not very much. The case New Hampshire makes in their complaint is not only strong, but it's simple. However, less than 3 years ago, this court ignored the Constitution and the sovereignty of the states and found that one state could exercise its power over people and businesses that have no physical presence within their borders. They used the complaint South Dakota filed as a pretense to diminish the powers of the state even further. Now, it would be a fool's errand for me to attempt to predict what the court will do. See, unless the Commonwealth of Massachusetts can come up with a better defense for their actions than "we need the money," the court should quickly and easily fine for New Hampshire. My hope is this outcome is bolstered by the recent case Texas v. Pennsylvania, where the court said one state did not have a legal interest in how another state conducts their elections. From the opinion, quote, Texas has not demonstrated a judicially cognizable interest in the manner in which another state conducts its elections. Still, as we saw in the South Dakota v. Wayfair case, a state's love of money can easily blind the interests of justices of the court. I would hope that the citizens of the other 48 states would pressure their employees in their state houses to do two things. First, if we want our states to remain free, then they should file briefs on behalf of New Hampshire. See, if Massachusetts can tax residents of New Hampshire, well, then New York can tax residents of Massachusetts. California can tax residents of Nevada, and maybe even Alaska could find some excuse to tax residents of Washington state. Second, if the court finds in favor of New Hampshire, then each and every state interested in freedom, liberty, and the rule of law should sue any other state that attempts to force their residents to collect sales tax for them, using this case as a precedent. If Massachusetts cannot exercise its state power to collect income tax on citizens of other states, then neither should any state be allowed to exercise any of their powers on residences and businesses of other states. This would be a small but important step to returning not only state sovereignty and federalism to the Republic, but to protecting the rights of the citizens of the several states to live free. You know, I find it interesting when a case comes that actually trips up another case. This New Hampshire v. Massachusetts, again, it's a simple case. And as the court found just a few months ago, one state has no interest in how the other state does its business. They have no sovereign authority over other states. So why would the state of Massachusetts, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, be able to tax non-residents that have no physical presence within their state? But by the same argument, why should I, as a business owner in Tennessee, be forced to submit taxes to other states? The court now has a conundrum. Will they support their precedent, or will they return to the rule of law? And will they recognize that by finding for New Hampshire, they, in effect, invalidate their opinion in South Dakota v. Wayfair? It's a tangled web we weave when we use the courts to get our way regardless of the law. So I hope you found this interesting. Keep an eye on this one. This should be interesting. And let's make sure our states are supporting their own sovereignty and the freedom and liberty of their citizens. Now, if you found this interesting, again, head over to the website, constitutionstudy.com. Hey, if you want to find more, if you want to get more training, if you want to find others that are interested in studying the Constitution, please consider signing up at constitutionscholars.com. It is absolutely free. You can see what's going on and then join your state's group. Find out what's going on in your state. Find out what's going on in the United States. Let's be involved. Let's be engaged, because we need to be engaged, and we need to engage locally. We're not going to fix the federal government until we get the states under control. And we're not going to get our states under control until we get our counties under control. So again, head over to constitutionscholars.com, sign up for free, get involved, get engaged. If you want to go on and really do some studying to become a master scholar, the options are there as well. Most of all, though, you found this useful. If you found it worth your time, share it with friends and family. Let others know there are people out here who simply explain what the Constitution says and simply explain what's going on with legislation and judicial opinions. Most of all, found it valuable. I want to see you here again next time at the Constitution Study.
There's one thing you have to